thank you everyone for joining today. As I mentioned earlier on, it's a bit of a clickbaity topic. And, like I said, we've had 300 plus people register for this, which is one of the biggest ones we've had this year. And question being, why are the hedge funds we talk to, our sales team talk to, our support team talk to, I talk to, 90% of them have not yet, even past COVID, past digital transformation and all that kind of stuff, are still working like when I used to work in a hedge fund. So we just thought, right, let's just find a way to put all the cards on the table and kind of change it around a little bit. And I have changed the topic to say, what should you be doing in 2026? So just a little more upbeat than telling you what you should be doing rather than what you're not doing. So there we go. So let's start with that. Start a nice positive note and let's move forward. Quickly, a little bit about ProFundCom. We've been going for the last 20 years, it's 25 years coming up. Deal with all kinds of hedge funds, asset managers, private debt, private equity, helping them raise assets using digital engagement analytics. We produce our platform, which is an IR and sales, used by IR and sales teams. We produce quarterly reports that if you subscribe to us, if your clients or on our mailing list, you receive, some via paper, some via email. Our latest report is we're actually reviewing the latest, we're reviewing the top 100 hedge funds for their digital marketing, reviewing how they're doing. And the next one, which I've just written and which has been printed, and for Q2 is on why is AI failing fund marketing. So again, I think we're doing a webinar on that at some point, so feel free to join that or join our mailing list and we can get that sent to you. But before I get dragged into that, let's stick on with why it's not 1998. A little bit about ProFundCom. G2 rates us as a high-performing niche player, which is exactly where we want to be around marketing automation and engagement analytics. So obviously the leaders are HubSpot. Weirdly, Salesforce and all their tools are lagging behind. Constant Contact is up there, very generic, very good tools, but we're very much in that airspace ahead of all our competitors. Marketo is just ahead of us there, but that's okay. We'll get to them. Being a very niche player, very very domain specific, which is all around alts. And you'll see that because all along here, all the people we integrate with are generally CRMs that are in the hedge fund, in the alt space. And as a company, it looks like somebody sneezed, but don't worry, it's not contagious. All the greens are kind of clients and clients by volume that we have globally, and the blues are where ProFundCom has offices and a presence. And as that famous quote goes, for those for you who are watching in black and white, but that's a very English one, so I'll leave that one there for you if you're playing snooker or pool. Okay, a little bit about us, what we kind of do, and the thing what really underpins fund marketing is a lot was not spoken about. And whether it's 1998 or it's 2006, a lot of fund marketers we talk to don't really get that fund marketing is really about 5 key elements about your brand, about your marketing. It's about creating your fund narrative. It's about creating brand awareness. We've got demand generation, measuring engagement, and then using the analytics. And this is really where, the old world has kind of moved on to say these are very, very specific tasks. And in the old world, 1998, we'll put a website together and that was it. Again, no real strategy behind marketing. Marketing was just considered the website. However, now it really has become a bit of a science, and the more you become digital, the more you're analyzing things, the more you're analyzing engagement rather, the more you're kind of feeding that into your demand generation, feeding that into your brand awareness. These are all very, very separate activities. And somebody who's a fund marketer in the past was, essentially sales. It's now a lot more than that. And this slide is really hopefully answer some of the questions we get is, well, we do marketing, or is marketing that important anymore? So, and once you've kind of done all those steps, your narrative, your brand awareness, your demand gen, engagement, you've basically got to create content with your branding on it and then analyze what works and what doesn't work. And that really is the echo chamber of what's working, what's not working. Where do we put our marketing budget? Do we put it on this type of content? Do we put it on manager trips? Do we put it on going to events? Do we put it on social posts? Do we put it on blog posts, real online, offline events? Whichever. This is really the key part. And what's really important, and this is the thing that really gets missed, is whilst we're all very familiar, is once you get your analytics, you feed the funnel, and then at the end of it, investment comes out. The thing that gets really missed out is the mid funnel. And the hardest part of the middle of the funnel is there is no science that basically lets you know what's going on in the middle of the funnel. How are people understanding what you do? How are the allocators thinking about you? When are the LPs looking to make a decision? All that kind of information is completely scattered. And as we've kind of moving into, I suppose, a world where there are many, many digital touch points, having that data spread around makes the classic marketing attribution element of fund marketing almost impossible to actually get a view on it. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to say, well, actually, there is a way around this. And that's what we're going to hopefully take you through, and hopefully feel like, as I've changed the topic, you've got the ability to actually drill down into data, drill down into countries. So if you want to look at France, who are the people engaging with you in France? Who are the companies? Who are the people? What are they looking at? You've got the ability then to say, okay, who in add-ons is engaging with us, and being able to drill down into add-ons and actually say, okay, what are they looking at? What intent have they got towards potentially investing or make an allocation towards us? So this is really kind of the end goal. And what I will do is I'll take you through how you actually get to this point through this webinar. And that probably takes about half an hour to do. But if you're not about, that's fine. We'll send you a replay. Questions come in. Hello, just one. Use Deal Cloud. Can we get ProFuncom running along? Yes, you can. We connect into Deal Cloud as well. Right. So once you've kind of looked at the overall picture, like I had in the previous slide, it's being able to drill down into individuals and kind of seeing their intent. Is their intent ticking up? Is their intent ticking down? What are they engaging in? What are they looking at? How engaged they've been over time? So that really, and across what channel? And that really is the point, is that 1998 was all about sending out emails because that was the new shiny technology. 2000 come along, ProFuncom starts going along with MailChimp, Constant Contact, HubSpot, slightly different story, and we're analyzing emails. But I think, that is 1998. There are so many now data points. There's so much AI that you can apply to the data to actually find out who are the people your sales team and your IR team should be talking to. Okay, so change of topic. Operating like it's so I was going to say party like it's 1999. Operating like it's 2026. A bit of fun fact, Google started in 1998. And I started ProFuncom back then, and I had £5,000 of Google shares that I sold to start ProFuncom. So there you go. If you want a tale of not sitting on shares, Is that right? Then I'm probably a cautionary tale. But there we go. We wouldn't be having this conversation today. Okay, right. So what we're going to look at today, beyond email opens, what other things should you be tracking? How can you, what kind of investor behavior you're looking at? What signals intent? We're going to look at, the 10 points on operational risk. I'm using spreadsheets. It's working fine. We're going to look a little bit at automation, segmentation, and taking your shift from marketing and campaigns to actually capital raising, and how do you build that into what you do on a daily basis. So I will have an eye on time. I will try and get through this in half an hour. So here we go. So beyond emails opens. So as I said, opening emails, fine. And then what? And what I found within the first 3 weeks of the first deployment of ProFundCom, nobody really cared because they looked at emails being opened and said, well, I know these people anyway. And what people were really interested then is the new people or the most engaged people. And that's what really, this is what we've got here in front of you. This is the data you can pull out from your analytics. And you don't need to use ProFundCom or other, you can probably pull this out from other tools as well. So what you want to be able to do, it's to basically have signals of intent, signals of behaviors. And the ones that we've kind of got down here, which people over the last 20 years have kind of stuck by, is things like, for a sales team, knowing, who are your low-hanging fruits. So who are the people that are actively reading your emails, downloading your content from the web, attending online, offline events on your investor portal? Who are those highly engaged people? But the twist is that you haven't spoken to them for the last period of time. So surfacing that information suddenly makes these kind of low value data points suddenly really quite useful. You've then got cross-selling opportunities. So if you've got multiple funds or you're doing multiple fundraisers, who are your existing investors that you can probably target with either more investment or a new fundraise for another fund. So having a cross-selling element as well in kind of the second area, that's so important when you're actually finding signals in this data. Redemption risk is kind of the reverse of that, is which of your investors have actually stopped engaging with you, so who are not on your website, not on the investor portal, not downloading information, but it's about their portfolio, about their valuation. Do they need a call? Do they need an engagement? So from the sales team or the IR team. So again, surfacing this kind of behavior, surfacing this kind of intent, whether positive or negative. Then you've got kind of this concept of marketing alpha. And marketing alpha is all about who are the people that have not engaged with you from the last 6 months, but in the last month are suddenly reading what you're sending them. And this really is kind of that kind of mid-funnel area where you're kind of looking at, something has changed in their world. You may not know what it is, and you could try and guess what it is. But in reality, something's changed. It's been picked up. Right. Surface that and then get someone to call them. In this case, it's filtered by the account manager, Sally. But so Sally will get this and have the ability to say, right, who, Eleanor, Fiona, Phoebe, Chloe, what's changed in your world? They'll be pre-armed. So it won't be a conversation about the weather or did you go to Miami for, the Alts week, whatever. You kind of know already. The intelligence is kind of baked into the data you're pulling out the system. You've then got Audience Connect. And this is quite an interesting one. If you've got multiple touch points, the AI has the ability to see people's, they call it user journey, but look at user journeys that are flagging intent to basically feed back into the sales team. And then you've got, your most active companies. So sometimes, people don't always look at individuals, they kind of look at companies as well. And being able to drill down into that information where you can actually see, in this case, Yvette, what has she been doing? She's been on LinkedIn, she's downloaded some fact sheets, She has been on the investor portal. She's registered and attended a Zoom. So all this data, all these data touch points become available at the contact level and also become available within your CRM. And that's really quite important because having data scattered, which is fine, well, it's not really fine. It's scattered and it's ignored, and you convince yourself we can't pull it together. You then pull it together in a spreadsheet or in Power BI or, God forbid, in Pro Funcom, and then suddenly, oh, no one's engaging with this information, the sales team, the IR team. Ultimately, you've got to put it into your CRM somewhere, and it's got to be made visible and surface for the people that will be making these calls. And having that ability, having that workflow is really key. And that is really what CRM is all about. CRM is about behavioral change. And having this data available is fine, collating it's fine, but it's got to be built into the workflow, built into the CRM, so the people who are going to use this data, it's made available to them and they do something with it. Otherwise, it's an utter waste of time, and it's literally just vanity. So you've got to move away from marketing, which is, still a taboo subject. No, probably something that, the portfolio managers and the fund managers kind of look down on because it's not science, and it doesn't, essentially it's what the other people do. It doesn't really add to the business. It's really changing that mindset around and helping those people see that the creative, the marketing is actually helping in the asset raising process and also the asset preserving process as well. So having the data in the CRM, taking it beyond emails to websites, investor portal, that is the cultural journey hopefully most people go on, but not just have it built, but you've got to kind of feed the beast with content, as I kind of explained in that go-to-marketing slide. Okay, and yeah, having that lead deck again in your CRM, really important. Right, so that's beyond the emails. We've got, a question's come in. Actually, it's on this subject, so I'll take it in now. What is the tipping point where there's a risk to the business rather than inefficiencies? We're literally coming to that point now. I'll answer it quickly. The tipping point, well, there are two ways you can find out something, right? You can stick your hand in the fire and say, ow, that hurts, never do it again. Or you can be told not to do it. And as most people on this webinar will, they'll still put their hand in the fire, get it burnt, and they'll think, oh, or there'll just be people who say, you know what, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe I should do that. So the tipping point, look, essentially, a really good example is that plane crash in LaGuardia, right? All planes have got trackers in them that basically do their positioning, and if there's a chance of a collision, then alarms go off, air traffic control can deal with it. Fine. There should never be a single point of failure that for something like that to happen. And I know we're just talking about emails, but hey, kind of the same thing, right? Where are your point of failures? The thing with that fire engine is that it did everything right, but it didn't have a transponder in it. And so the system that's built to stop on collisions just failed. So it's a question of, well, that kind of makes common sense, right? And it's a bit like that plane that just careered at the end of a runway and went into a bank, and just that was the end of it, right? Concrete bank. And it kind of makes sense, but it's all post-event. And that's the challenge when you talk about tipping points, when you talk about, what will it take? What will it take for me to take my cholesterol medicine? Well, actually, I don't know. I don't really take it. It's a behavioral science thing. And it's just one of those points. So let's get into this and let's see where your tipping point is, anonymous. Okay. So let's get into it. So here we go. First thing, human error. Sending things to the wrong email list, wrong attachments, broken links, and probably, the biggest faux pas is when you're manually running a system and you get the dear brackets. I mean, how many times have you seen that? Look, it happens, and it happens so frequently. If we look at our support desk, this is something that doesn't happen. But when we talk about people who have done the dreaded BCCing a whole list, and unfortunately exposing everybody because you put in the CC list. I mean, human error is going to happen. So in many ways, it's brutal, but our nature is we're busy, time poor, may not have processes in place, running off spreadsheets, running off a simple mailing tool, not in things are not segmented correctly, and you just send the wrong email. That is, in most cases, when people come to us, the second biggest reason why they migrate to a system, as opposed to a system that is in somebody's head. So I think that's one of the big risks, operational risks of doing things manually. The other thing as well is, there's no audit trail. And as a result, immediately, if you're just using manual processes, you can't, reconstruct your communication for a email archive. You're immediately failing FCA, SEC, MiFID compliance requirements. It just becomes a compliance headache. And essentially, the fragility of it is all around, you're using somebody's inbox to send something, right? And you are, relying on your own Microsoft 365 or your Gmail accounts, which throttle the emails you're sending out. If your emails get seen as spam, there's no way of dealing with that, but I'll come to that. So, and just not having an audit trail is probably, the biggest reason to not just send things from a desktop, which essentially this is. And it just becomes a compliance blind spot. Inconsistent messaging is literally where everybody's sending stuff out. But the worst part to this, where you actually end up where the tone's different, the content's different, but your disclaimers are completely wrong. And that's, again, a compliance risk. It's a regulatory risk. It's a bit of a brand risk as well. And again, people just fall foul of that on a regular basis. You've got to ask yourself, does anybody care? Does anybody read the disclosures? Does anybody really care whether an email is compliant or non-compliant? A bit like sending the wrong email, it just takes one, right? And anything you can do to stop that happening is something worth doing. And it's very much, in aviation, they kind of call all these things the Swiss cheese model, where you can have lots of slices of Swiss cheese with holes in them, and you kind of stack them up, along a line, and hopefully you won't see a hole through it. So having all these things, step by step, all these checkpoints, and really help making sure, especially in our business of fund marketing, we don't fall foul of compliance or regulatory. And I get it. Look, show me a compliance person that's actually built something or said yes to anything, versus a marketing person with ideas and thoughts and ways to raise AUM and all that kind of stuff. There are naysayers who say no, and there are marketers who want to say yes, and there'll always be that clash. And compliance and regulatory, there'll always be death, taxes, and compliance, right? No one's ever used marketing in that word, even though probably they should. So this is like kind of something really, really to get right, is making sure that the disclaimers and disclosures are correct. And it's, again, very hard to do manually. And again, if you are sending out from the desktop, 1998 style, GDPR, can spam becomes a problem. I did mention Microsoft and Gmail are tightening their rules of what you can send from a desktop or from within your Microsoft 365 tenant. They're reducing the number of emails you can send per hour. And so, again, becomes a problem, and they won't tell you the email hasn't been delivered. So you think all your content's going out, all your performance numbers, your NAVs, all going out, your estimates, but in reality, they're going to nobody. So again, it also becomes a problem in how you manage how clean your lists are, managing your bounce backs, managing your subscribes or unsubscribes, all kind of feeds into that. And once you kind of lose the ability to send emails because Microsoft and Gmail have locked you down, then no one can send emails out from your company. And suddenly, if marketing got a bad name, oh my goodness, no Christmas cards for you. Okay, deliverability risk, kind of came to this just now, is that sending emails out, you just damage your domain reputation because you're not really, you're just blasting emails out, and all the spam checkers, all the reputation servers on the internet see that. There's no bounce management, there's no suppression, there's no preference center. Hey, if you want to kill yourself silently, you've got high cholesterol, you've got blood pressure, and you just got spamming the world. So let's not, again, a big risk for sending manual emails out. And again, it kind of goes without saying, if you're sending emails out manually, if you're sending emails out via even a tool, you don't get engagement. And engagement is not just emails being opened, it's all those other touch points, website, investor portal, social, Zoom, Vimeo, all those touch points. You have no visibility at all. And ultimately, there is no way then of attributing what marketing is doing to help the asset raising, asset preserving process. You're flying blind. So when you go in for a pay review, or when you're going up, in for getting more budget, it'll be like, right, how is that increase in spend on the business going to impact money coming through the door? So again, a real problem with manual sends. Version control. Again, you can't revoke your content. You can't revoke documents. You can have multiple documents being sent out. There's no real control on, again, who's actually viewing your content. So again, that's kind of how email works, but there are ways to mitigate that. So which hopefully, again, mitigates misinformation, compliance issues, and also the ability where you don't want competitors getting access to material you're emailing. It's a concept known as DRM, digital rights management, championed by Steve Jobs and the iPod. So yeah, Madison, there will be a recording of today's session. If you've fallen asleep, we've got somewhere to go to, but if you've got to go, recording will be sent. Scalability. And again, nobody, do they? I don't know, plans for success and invest in success. So they'll just send emails out. And as the fund gets bigger and bigger and bigger, the last thing people look at is their email sends and their distribution, sending out the NAVs and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of left to the back burner because marketers by nature don't complain. Suddenly, a tipping point event happens and the distribution doesn't scale. So error rates go up, you rely on key individuals, there's bottlenecks, and ultimately things don't go out. And kind of we hear that a lot. And finally, it's in somebody's head. And that person goes, that person leaves. There's no support desk to call, there's no third party to call, there's no real operating procedure. And if it is, it's already outdated. How many people document this? So you kind of end up in this real hidden fragility. And last thing on this, is accidental forwarding of confidential material. And it really is. I mean, this probably should have been the first slide, but it's the worst kind. Probably save the best for last. There's a song about that. But hey, you don't want to be that guy. And all of these things individually are not catastrophic because they're systemic. But if you kind of get one wrong and you fly through those cheese holes in that Swiss cheese model, it's not a good outcome for anybody that afternoon. So yeah, and just to summarize, it kind of answers the first question I got. It's not the risk that one email goes wrong. It's the inability to prove that the system actually works. And that really is kind of the thought of the day on this one. Okay, operational risk. Wow, that's taken us a bit of time. So let me crack on with automation. And the trouble with automation, everybody says, let's automate. They also nowadays say, let's AI. Let's do all these things. And that is like the worst thing you could do, is like kind of have these ideas. Basically, you've got to start with the end game in mind, right? And the end game in mind is really, how do I raise more money? How do I improve my relationship with my LPs? How do I shorten fundraising cycles? And how do I get better? I can reduce my operational risk and get more efficiencies. And it really should be tied at the very least into raising money or investor retention. And if you don't tie it to something critical to your business, it will die. And the thing with ProFundCom, I mean, it's slightly different than raising money. There are three things critical to our business: security, security, security. That's it. Boom, done. And because of that, everything we build, everything we do for our clients, for each other, is all around, does this compromise security? So those 10 points I showed you, we have about 32 of those. And we monitor them, they're checked. We do real-time penetration testing for that very reason, because our culture is built around security. And that drives everything. And it's really being able to say, right, what we've found, the funds that do really, really well is if they tie their marketing not to vanity metrics, like who's clicked what, or how many views did we get, how many likes did we get. That's just baloney. Really is, how did this impact our asset raising process? Okay, so that's kind of on automation. You can't do automation if data's duplicated, if it's outdated, if it's not segmented, and you've got missing key fields. And 1998, if that's your data and you've just kind of kept it all the way till 2006, automation, AI is not going to work for you. You've got to have a golden source of data. You've got to use standardized fields, and you've got to have this ability to tag the data by either region, status, ticket size, strategy, whatever, in a way that the automation can make sense of it. And then if you are going to do something, just start simple. Create automations that, warm, if engagement increases, send them some content, some deeper content, alert your internal team. After a meeting, send them tailored content. That really works. And if that was my English sarcasm, it's anti-sarcasm, because that really works. Ask John Green about that. John Green, you'll find him on LinkedIn. Really, really good guy. Okay. And if you then look at investor re-engagement, so that's people who haven't been engaging that are suddenly re-engaging with you. And if you know that when people download certain types of content and they've done it over a regular period of time, then you just notify IR immediately. Okay, so those are kind of the quick workflows. Remember, marketing people, you're not coders, you're not programmers. Vibe coding doesn't work. Start with something simple and then kind of build out from there. Otherwise, you'll end up coding this all up and you'll kind of miss all your deadlines. So that's automation. Data-led investor segmentation is where everybody is sending everybody the same stuff and wondering what's working and what's not working. And again, this is where, the data cleansing and data labeling is so important. So you basically, splitting your data out is so important, and you're kind of moving away from this kind of spray and pray mentality that marketers have. I mean, the two things people don't have is the ability to remove contacts from a marketing database and then the ability then to not segment and just blast the world. And there's so many people just use that word blast. So that's what people you should be doing in 2026. Okay, quick questions come in. Oh, Ian, hi Ian. Uh, what works base? What CRM works best with us? We integrate with all the usual suspects. It's not a question of integration, it's a question of CRM is do they know your business, and do you use a generic platform like Salesforce, Investor Dynamo, and that'll be painful, or you work with people who really know their onions, like Investor Dynamo, Folio, Situate, and those kind of people. It is your poison. If you just want to use something cheap, there's Espo CRM that we use and integrates with us and is built into our CRM. So like I said, CRM is behavior and CRM is budget. So once you've got those two factors worked out, you can work out what you want to do, but we connect with all. Okay, so finally, we go to campaigns, to capital raising. Again, this is what people are doing in 2026. They are moving away from email sends, email blasts, let's automate everything, to a way where they can signal and get real information and build everything around investor behavior and investor intent. And the tools they use, look, there's our product that allows you to do that. You can build this out in Power BI if you've got the data, and you can build out intent and see which companies are showing engagement. You can then drill down further, and I showed you this earlier on, is where you can drill down into the contact level and actually see what people are doing across multiple channels, the various touch points, how engaged they've been over time. Is there an opportunity to, to talk to these people, right? Ultimately. And then finally, the ability to say, right, we've got engagement analytics, we've got marketing automation based on country. Who should we be targeting? If say in Switzerland, which campaigns are performing better than others, which funds are performing better than others, and also the ability to actually see how your marketing is performing and how does that track against inflows. So having all this information to hand, really, again, it just moves away from vanity metrics of email opens, even Google Analytics, like who's coming to our website, and actually pulling that all together in one place. So here we go. That is the webinar done. 40 minutes, so 10 minutes over. I've actually got another few questions that have come in. When you say opens are meaningless, what does real investment engagement look like? So thanks for that question, Anonymous. So I think going back to the slide here, this is what real engagement looks like. It's not about emails being opened. It's the intent, it's the investor behavior, bucketing it into these behaviors. Like we've got buckets here, attaching them to a salesperson, so the salesperson can contact these people. And if you want, filtering by fund and whether they're investors or not. It really is that 3 to 4 level of abstraction that actually prompts an activity. And this is the problem with data, right? You can look at your cholesterol, you can look at your intermittent heart rate or your interval heart rate, which you can do on a Whoop that I've just thrown away, by the way. You can look at all kinds of data and do nothing with it. And that's the thing with dashboards. People love dashboards because it tells them to do nothing. And what we're trying to do is creating the behavior in the asset raising team, wherever that is, to actually do something with this data. So that really is, opens are meaningless, as is all data is meaningless, unless you can create signals that prompt activity. So there we go. So I hope that answers your questions. We got one on automation. We've tried automation before and it doesn't stick. The tools we use were too generic for investor base. I don't know. It is. I mean, our HubSpot does do a good job with marketing automation. I think the challenge that we've seen, whether it's Marketo, whether it's HubSpot, is that the data is not. I don't think that it's probably user error. So it really is a case of not knowing your outcomes you wanted. It's a case of not being able to communicate that to the HubSpot guys or with the HubSpot consultants. The fact that they're not specialists is probably kind of feeds into that. I don't see why a HubSpot automation wouldn't work. It could be. I mean, that's yeah. I'm not going to trash somebody who's like top right on the G2 cloud, but I think a lot of failures, and again with marketers, I did mention, is marketers are not coders, and it is a lot of branches and a lot of decisions that have to be made in the tool. So it is a programmatic exercise more than anything else. So okay, so I didn't answer that, but maybe I did. Okay, how can I prove my marketing drives capital? Well, the thing is you can't, and that is always the challenge. You can't if your data is disparate. You can't if you're not collecting data, and you can't if you're not surfacing your data. And that is the thing, because people think of marketing as all outbound, going to events, sending out emails, and the tools that are available don't really bring that data in-house, where you can really do the analysis. Now you can do some, Google Ads, Google G4 analysis. You can do some email open analysis. You can, but after a while, and this is an interesting thing, the more channels you analyze, you become 15% more efficient at your job doing that. So the minute you've got 5 channels, you can't really do marketing. So it is a case where the marketing does not drive capital. It's the analysis and action of the data that drives capital. So yeah, it's not ProFundCom, it's not MailChimp, it's not HubSpot. It is how the business culturally is building their behaviors around how they do their marketing, targeted not around campaigns, but on asset raising. And that is the key. And clients of ours, we've got 400 users of our product, and we have that kind of bell curve, and that the Pareto curve, like 20% of our clients have really got this, and 20% are never going to get this. But there's those in the middle that are kind of getting it, because that's what we're trying. That's what we really talk about. Our product, we are never going to outshine HubSpot, but we can out educate our niche, which is people on this webinar, hedge funds, asset managers, private debt, VC, PE, all the above. Okay. Just one more question. Sorry, I missed this. Is this relevant for high net worths? Absolutely. Because high net worths don't have corporate emails. They're sitting with emails that are Hotmail, Outlook, the hardest emails to deliver. So having an automated process where you're keeping your domain clean, keeping your reputation clean, highly, highly important. What's really important with high net worths is the emails that perform the worst are the ones that look the best. So text only, Outlook typed emails, those are the ones that are going to get read. If you make it, so amazing with all the pretty colors and all that kind of stuff that, dare I say, designers love to show you, it won't work. And so it is absolutely, so segmentation is important, analyzing your mailing list is important, automating that is important enough, but depending on how many high net worths you're dealing with. If it's a low number, weirdly, you can probably just send them emails from the relationship manager directly. If it's in bulk, you probably need to automate that process. Sorry, another question's come on. Yeah, I can send out the PowerPoint, and I can send you a contact on a bit more on our product, Jessamine. Okay. Right. So thanks everyone for attending this webinar. As I've said a number of times, the replay will be sent. Just checking I've answered all the questions. Yes, I have. Okay, great. Well, have a great Easter holiday, great spring break, people. Thank you all very much. Bye for now.